Good evening. Welcome to the Who's Left Podcast, a show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from an unapologetically leftist perspective. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and I'm broadcasting from Bloomington. We are exactly 1 week removed from primary election day here in Indiana, and while most of the attention went to the Republican side, it was a big night for Donald Trump, with his preferred state Senate candidates nearly sweeping the incumbents that dared defy him out of office. On the Democratic side, it was a mixed bag. Progressives won some big races, including the 4th and 9th District congressional races, while establishment-backed candidates also took their fair share of wins. One of the places we were keeping an eye on, of course, on election night was Marion County. As the state's most populous locality, Indianapolis and Marion County have the power to drive party politics throughout the whole state. And as home to Mayor Joe Hogsett and an entrenched political machine, Indianapolis Democrats have outsized power to influence the perception of the Democratic brand. One Marion County Democrat who has been incredibly active in pushing against the sclerotic establishment machine is Samantha Douglas, the community organizer, activist, and co-host of the Black Briefing podcast, will join me shortly. But first, you know the routine. This is an independent media project. We don't paywall content, and we certainly don't have any billionaire benefactors. Only individuals like you keep this thing going. It is a foundational principle of Who's Left and the Progressive Indiana Network that we refuse to hide important information behind paywalls while we are in the middle of a political crisis, even if that is not in our financial best interest. So please, if you find value in this work, go to progressiveindiana.net and subscribe at the paid level. It's only $5 a month or $50 a year to help us build the infrastructure that will pop the right-wing media bubble in this state. And while a paid subscription is the best way to help us grow and sustain this project, you can help in other ways. By liking and sharing on social media, commenting, leaving reviews, providing feedback, and forwarding our content to your people. You get us when you can. Mostly, we just want you here in this community of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. Please join us. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at whosleft.us. That's HOOS left. And on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, simply at Who's Left. Progressive Indiana Network's handle is the full spelled out name on most sites, but on Blue Sky and TikTok, it is PIN Indiana. Please help us grow with a follow wherever you're at. Tell the others. Let's build a radically democratic Indiana together. All right. Enough of the shameless self-promotion. Let us go ahead and welcome Samantha Douglas into the show. Sam, thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I've been looking forward to this conversation for a real long time. So for the folks out here in my audience who are not familiar with you yet, number one, what is wrong with y'all? Number two, please introduce yourself.
I love that. Thank you. Well, I am Samantha Douglas. I currently serve as the president of the Far East Side Community Council. So a lot of advocacy, a lot of community organizing out here on the Far East Side of Indianapolis. I also serve as the communications director and programs director for IDEC State, which is the Indiana Democrat African American Caucus. I am now a two-time elected PC. And so a Democrat PC was a precinct committee person. We've done a lot of organizing around that. And actually, I'm now on the board of Mad Voters. So super excited to do that work as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great addition to a great organization there. So, Sam, lot to talk about going on, in Marion County, in Indianapolis, in our state, and, the world at large. And I really been wanting to get your perspective on some of these issues. So, about last Tuesday, I guess, let's start right there in Indianapolis. Before we even dig into like any of these particular races specifically, can you just sort of describe the dynamic in internal Democratic Party politics there in the Circle City?
Yeah, I think so. It's complex because we are very Democrat here. There are many different districts that have a 70 plus Democrat presence. And unfortunately, I think truthfully, lack of competition always hurts consumers. So, we say in the market, competition drives up quality, drives down prices. It's the same kind of thing with politics. And here, unfortunately, because there's not a lot of competition, there's a lot of complacency. And I think that complacency has led to like low turnout, things like that, because I'm sure you guys know, but like we've highlighted this across the state several times that if we could turn out Marion County at a certain level, if we could turn out Lake County at a certain level, that we have the capacity and the people power to really control these statewide seats. But unfortunately, we just can't. And I don't see us getting there with the way that things are currently, which is why we're building something different. But that's kind of where we're at in Marion County. It's just a lot of complacency, a lot of leadership that shouldn't be there. But we're working on it. We're chipping away at it.
I see you working on it all the time, on social media. I see what you're doing. The Briefing, by the way, folks, the Black Briefing, perhaps the best current affairs podcast in the entire state.
Oh, thank you
hands
so
down.
much.
No, y'all are doing great work there. And folks should follow you. I'll give you an opportunity to tell folks where they can do that here at the end of the show.
Yeah.
But I have this kind of hypothesis about Indianapolis politics and about big city Democratic politics in general. And is that where you have, especially in like states like Indiana, where they're like really gerrymandered and they pack all the Democrats into a single district, there's this theory that gerrymandering and polarization leads to like polarization of two parties. Like safe districts lead to both parties going to their extremes. And on the Republican side, that is true. We have ample evidence to demonstrate that. But on the Democratic side, you're not seeing like radical leftists win seats. What you do see is that money and injects itself into those safe spaces and sort of captures the Democratic machine in those places as well. And they sort of also ratchet toward the right. Not the MAGA right, but like the capitalist right, the real estate developer right, the big money right.
Yeah. I think I see too here in Marion County, especially. Democrats start to kind of like section off. So what happens here, and I've talked about this a lot actually on our podcast, but when you're in a supermajority, like our city council is supermajority Democrat, like all of our seats are supermajority Democrat. When you're in a supermajority, these caucuses and stuff does not help because all of us are so Democrat. We need other factors to now distinguish where we land. Like, are you the best representation for me? And so, what actually has happened here is like, I think you're seeing a movement of people saying, being Democrat isn't enough. Like, I need you to be this kind of Democrat to represent me. And then there's obviously some of our folks, like our socialist folks, stuff like that, that are more left. They're like, I need you to be this kind of Democrat to represent me. And I think it has been successful in like when you see people like Jesse Brown. Jesse Brown defeated a very much so establishment incumbent in his district, in District 13 for the city council. So I think in some areas it really works, in that near downtown area, in the Irvington area where you have a lot more progressive Democrat voters. It really does work. I also think too, talking about money, what's been interesting here is big money can lose. It can lose with people power. And we've seen that over and over again. We saw it with Andy Nelson's race for city council. He beat David Ray, who was a union backed incumbent, whooped his tail. It didn't matter. The money didn't matter. And you even seen it in our mayoral race with Hogstead, is what we lovingly call him here. But with Hogstead, like you saw it with him and Shreve. Like Shreve dumped millions and millions and millions. And people try to say it's a strategy. He did that to get the con. I don't know if that was a strategy. It didn't seem like it, but at any rate, he dumped a lot of millions into a race and then still lost because you need the people power. Money at the end of the day doesn't vote. And in these smaller locations, like a city, like a county, you can definitely beat money with people power.
You can, and a lot of people right there in Indianapolis, more than any single congressional district in the state. I think your average congressional district nationwide is about 750,000 people. In Indianapolis, you got what, 900,000 people right there in Marion County?
It is a lot. Plenty to run this whole state. And
So, yeah.
we just don't do it.
And as such, the mayoral race is there, big one coming up next year,
Yeah.
and I hope to come
do
back
you
and
see my?
revisit that.
I
We'll
hope
talk
you
about
guys
that.
see my button.
For the folks listening and not watching, Sam is wearing an Andrea Hundley button.
I sure am.
And we hope to talk to Senator Hundley over the course of the next year. Looking forward to that race. But that race is very much a microcosm of this dynamic, the same way that we had some countywide races this year that are sort of a representation of that dynamic. And I think the most high profile of those, maybe not most high profile, I suppose the sheriff might be more important in the grand scheme of things, but the clerk's race. We had there Carla Lopez Owens, a progressive. She was with us here on the show just a couple weeks ago. We like her a lot.
Love her.
She, progressive, was challenging the kind of entrenched incumbent clerk, former county party chair, Kate Sweeney Bell. And interesting things about the results of that race, which maybe we'll talk about in a second. But can you maybe tell us about the dynamics in that race specifically? I'm sure it's a lot more involved than just the establishment versus progressive sort of thing I mentioned there. Kate Sweeney Bell got some baggage.
Yes. So I actually talked about this in an article with Mirror Indy too, right before the race that was released. But yeah, there's been a history of protecting power for incumbents and doing whatever you have to for that. There's also been a history at stopping new young voices from coming out, being a part of elections and running for office. There's very much so of like this heavy presence of like you gotta follow the rules, and I'm one of those people that's kind of like, I like to remove excuse. So I like for my candidates to have all the technical qualifications, but I have represented some that didn't, and we tried to fight it with the election board, things like that, and it never works because they only pay attention to certain parts of the rules, not ones that would allow you to make allowances for new people who maybe haven't voted in as many primaries or something like that, which is a lot of young Black candidates, by the way. And so you get when you have people in there that are so bent on protecting the establishment and the rules and the way things have worked, and fixated on that, we can't make progress. And truthfully, that's what I saw Carla as. First of all, personally, I adore Carla, but also she was not just progressive, but she was also our chance to make progress. Right. And that's the challenge, is like we need people in these seats that are using money to push Democrats forward, and the right Democrats forward. Like one of the things that I say, especially about Marion County, is we get to be picky about our Democrats because we have so many. Everybody's Democrats. So we get to be picky. And unfortunately, we're not accustomed to that. So they have created this system that was not ready to handle competition. And what we saw in that race and in other races was the system kind of bucking back. And when I say the system, I don't just mean people, I mean the culture they have created. The culture they've created within our party. And I think not even just in Marion County, but statewide, where like you don't challenge another Democrat. And in truth, there are some areas, some districts where I could get behind something like that, right? But in Marion County, what? Like, you better? Like, we have to if we're going to get quality leadership. And I think she's one of those people, like, in truth, like, I think she did represent that in this race. And again, we saw how the system failed us with Carla losing by a margin smaller than a deceased candidate on the ballot got. That's the kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
So I wanted to talk about that, and I think I don't know if I have the numbers here with me specifically, but I
Yeah.
believe Carla lost by something like 2,200 votes. It was not a large margin. Bobby Kern finished third, wasn't there to enjoy finishing third. He passed away from a stroke on April 3rd. Rest in peace. But
And he got 4,500 votes.
yeah, and
4,500.
where are those votes coming from, Sam? How does that happen?
Well, one, and this is why I fault the leadership, because they'll say, oh, well, if something doesn't happen by a certain amount of date, the ballots, it's done, right? It's set in stone. It is what it is. Just like that's why we have a timeline for like when we can drop out of races and stuff like that, so we're not on the ballot, blah blah blah, right? But what they could do is, why wasn't there a notice at every single polling location saying, hey, unfortunately, one of the candidates has passed, Bobby Kern passed, blah blah blah. Like, he is on your ballot, but he is deceased. Like, for transparency, but that's not, that doesn't serve,
Gee, Sam,
them.
whose job would it have been to put out that information?
Whose job would it have been? It definitely would have been hers. So that's the challenge, and that's what I mean by systems, right? So like they'll use the system and these rules to kind of to hide behind, to say, well, it's not my job to do that, I don't have to do that. No, it's not your job to do that, and technically you don't have to do that, but it is the right thing to do, and it's the kind of leadership that we want and deserve.
I think a lot of the criticism of the Democratic Party, not just in Indianapolis there, but in general from the left, is there's a whole lot of, well, technically, that coming from the establishment. Oh, well, technically, we couldn't push through this progressive legislation in Congress because the parliamentarians said we can't do such.
Yep.
Well, technically, we can't push back against this Supreme Court ruling in Virginia. Well, Supreme Court rule, we respect their decision. Listen, for all of Republicans' problems, and there are many, they are vast. Listen, I think we're all on the same side in that regard. You can't blame them for not just doing the thing. Like, they don't let, well, technically get in their way.
Right. No, I think, I described this to somebody not too long ago, but it's like, if I slapped you right now, you could retaliate for me, but legally all you can really do is press charges, take me to court. That's a long process. And what we see Republicans exploiting, especially Donald Trump specifically right now, is he's like, how many slaps can I get in before you catch up through the courts? Because it's slow. This is a slow process. And so they're exploiting that right now. They're finding ways to not just bend rules, but also will blatantly break rules and say, catch up to me. And yeah, we don't do that. And I'm not necessarily advocating that we do, but I think there are certain occasions, like for example, when our rules allow for you to sign off on a new young Democrat, like, hey, they're a part of Young Dems, hey, they're a part of IDAC, hey, they're a part of this, but they voted in one primary. That's a candidate that you can give a waiver to. They're clearly a Democrat. They've been active. They've been involved. The rule is there, right? Like, that's the stuff that kind of eats me up. Is there are things that we can do, that we are allowed to do, and that we still won't do. And at that point, there's no justification for it. You are just intentionally creating barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I want to, before we sort of zoom out and look at some of the state house races, I want to stay there in Marion County, look at the sheriff's race a little bit. Sort of the same dynamic took place there. Kelvis Williams is the man who eventually won his race, but but a week or two before the primary, he sent out a mailer. It said, hey, we are the official Democratic team. And, Ms. Sweeney Bell was on that list, as was prosecutor Ryan Mears, as was the Mila Eldridge was on there, I believe.
Yep.
So kind of gave the impression that the official party endorsement was his, where
Yeah.
we don't do that anymore, at least officially. Slating
Right.
is a thing of the past. And, what do you make of that? I understand that you were considering voting for Mr. Williams until you saw that, and it's like,
I was.
that's shady.
You know what? You know what's funny? Earlier that week, I kid you not, it was the exact same week. Earlier that week, Carla was on the phone, and we're talking about it, and well, and not just her, but other folks are asking me about like who else going to vote for sheriff and blah, blah blah. I had lots and lots of questions about this, and every time I said that, I'm considering Kelvis, I had heard the other candidate, Greg Patrick, talk a few times, and it wasn't doing it for me. And to be honest, the sheriff's race is super important because a lot of people like haven't seen it, but in our jails right now, like especially in our new jail, that our new criminal justice campus, we've had several people pass away like in custody. We've had like there was a violent offender that was being transported by a single sheriff who got choked to death. Like there, yeah, like
What?
these are, yeah, there are significant issues. And to me, I was like, I wanted somebody I felt like I could trust. And it felt like when I heard Kelvis talk, it felt like he knew what he was doing. It felt like we would, he would be accessible. We could talk to him, we could advocate, we could do the things. Um and yeah, I felt stronger about that. But when I seen that, to me, it just again, you're willing to bend the rules to protect establishment, but you're not willing to actually use rules to support, progress. And to me, that's what that signified. It also bothered me because I do want to point out on this slate piece because it definitely felt and looked like it, that there was candidates on there that were unopposed. So it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even like you like our recorder is unopposed, Mila Eldridge unopposed, like there was no even reason to put them on. Our prosecutor unopposed. So it was really kind of like an endorsement piece too. I didn't like that
Mm-hmm.
gray area. And then when you flip that sucker over, it had him and Kate Sweeney Bell side by side, and that was the other thing too. That was the other straw for me. Anybody who's willing to support and uplift her publicly, I took issue with. So I'm like, absolutely not. I was barely on that side of it anyway, but you put that out, and I can't. I have to be able to sleep at night with these decisions, and I know they make a ton of decisions that they don't care about, but I care about who I vote for.
I've always thought it weird that sheriff is an elected office. Like police chiefs aren't elected, and it's kind of analogous. Of course, we elect coroners too, and I always thought that was highly unusual. These are things that's like, well, you should have to have a certain, set of qualifications, maybe be picked by the deputies in the department. I don't know. I don't know how we do
I think there's a level of these people should be accountable to the people, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
people are accountable to whatever power or entity put them into that seat, which is why I don't care for appointments personally, because those people are usually more accountable to the person who appointed them rather than the people they're serving. And so I don't have a problem with them being elected because I like that the accountability measure is to the people, but I'm with you. I do wish there was something in there that required some kind of qualifications for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah, what I want to say, especially on the Republican side, Indiana has a corrupt sheriff problem. I think like one of the guy down in Du Bois County just like had his credentials revoked for being caught up in a corruption scheme. Well, it doesn't matter because he was elected by the people down there. We'll see how that goes. Let's talk about the current sheriff there for a second. That's Kerry Forrestall. He won his he's term limited. 2 terms there. He can't run again. So he ran for state senate in District 31 there, and he won that race. What do you think of the current sheriff there? Is he going to make a quality state senator? I understand there's some controversy where he was very much eager and cooperative working with ICE. When I put out a flyer, said he stood up against them. That was
liar. Like
Yeah.
at
I'm glad you
yeah,
said it.
yeah.
And like I'm in one of the two counties in this state where our sheriff was like, listen, I understand there's a law I gotta follow, but I'm not going out of my way to help y'all. And
Right. Oh, I
and he's
love
getting
that.
some pushback on it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. That's so oh my goodness. So first of all, I was very disappointed to see Forstall win. Let me make that clear. But remember I said earlier that I do have different standards based on where we're talking about, right?
Mm.
And there's a local organization here that has this concept. They do like reentry work, but they have this concept where they do this ABC thing where it's like a job, a better job, and then a career, right? So it's like this step to progress, right? And so as much as I cannot stand Forrestal, um, we need that district to flip blue. And I think a Democrat is better than a Trump Republican. 1,000%. So it's one of those situations where, unfortunately, I think we are. I want to see that district go blue. I think a Democrat, and then we work on a better Democrat, and then we work on the Democrat we want. I think that's, and I hear you, I know, but I think strategically, if we don't support him, we lose that seat to a Republican, and we haven't talked about this yet, but they are going to bring redistricting back up. They are going to bring it back up, especially with Trump getting so many of his MAGA folks through. I think it was what, seven of them, I think, something like that. Like
It's 6 with one pending.
six.
So
Okay,
yeah.
six with one pending. Yeah, so it's gonna come back up, and as many blue seats as we can get, we need them. Um, so I know that is not. I know people don't want to hear that, and I'm sure that point that I just made is gonna come up again, and people are gonna be upset with me about it. But I think strategically, I don't just think about just what I want and what has to be there. But this is what we have to work with.
Yeah, and put a pin in the redistricting and the Senate on the Republican side. We will talk about that and kind of tie that to what's going on nationwide. But I guess to that dynamic that you spoke about with, well, it's the district,
Mhm.
especially this is a district that stretches out toward Fishers. Maybe you need a quote unquote safe candidate to run there, and Forrestal is certainly on the conservative side for a Democrat, and maybe he can win out there in Hamilton County where others can't, and District 29 sort of has that similar dynamic. And we should mention these Senate districts we're talking about are also gerrymandered. That is why you've
Yes.
got a district
Yes.
in 31 where it's part of Marion County out into a more Republican area. Same thing in
Yeah.
29. It's part of Marion County up out into like West Carmel and stuff. And that's where that's the seat that J.D. Ford is vacating. He won his congressional primary in the 5th district there. But in District 29, same sort of thing going on. You had a couple
You
really
know,
strong black candidates in Pastor
yes.
David Green. Disclaimer: Concerned Clergy podcast here on Progressive Indiana Networks Thursday morning.
Mhm.
Big fan of Pastor Green's, but Demetrix Hicks, also a very impressive candidate
Mhm.
in his own right. The safe white lady won that primary. Christina
And that's
Moorhead
I,
quite
I wanted to
handily.
s- I wanted to, yeah, well, you thought it was handily? It
She
was
won
pretty
it
close with her.
50%. Yeah.
It was because I thought her and Demetrius were pretty close. I don't remember the final total though, because I was
Oh, well, now
watching
you're going to make
live.
me look it up. But I want to say she broke
Please look it
50%.
up because I think it was close. I think it was close with her and Demetrius. Like I think it was close. But anyway, the last numbers I saw, they were really close. So I don't. It could have been though, by the final tallies they weren't as close.
Let's see. Well, that is the Republican race they're leading with at the top there. Moorhead, 51.2%.
Okay.
Hicks,
Okay.
25. Green, 20. And another candidate there, 2.7% there. So, like,
Okay.
we were talking
Okay.
about this on election night, and my perception was, okay, well, Green and Hicks sort of split the black vote, and maybe if we would have consolidated, but it doesn't appear that that's what happened.
Less of the black vote. So when you look at District 29, it's like this funky L shape where the top is
Mm-hmm.
really fat and then it gets skinny and goes down. But you're more population heavy on that skinny strip that goes down. So I think yes, they split the black vote, but they also just split a lot of those Pike voters. So those ones that dip into Marion County and stuff, they're more population dense and stuff. So they got a lot of votes out of there. But again, yeah, they split them, and you have her up there. I did want to point this out because we're on your podcast, and she was also on your podcast. That eh, she she lied on your podcast. Like
Wait,
there was a Christina Moorhead.
I have not spoken to Christina Moorhead, but she did, I want to say, have an interview with Derek Holder here on our network.
Oh, okay, okay. So it was on your. Oh, it was with Derek Holder on your network. Okay, okay. Are you sure? I thought it was Who's Left. Were you on there?
I assure you, I have never spoken with this woman.
Shut up. Okay. Well, anyway, she was on there. Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Okay. But she was on there. He was interviewing all three candidates, and she said she hasn't voted Republican since she was in high school. And I looked it up and I was like, that's absolutely not true. You voted Republican in 2023. So it was like, yeah, isn't that funky? It's very funky. So I didn't like it. I think it was just, yeah, a matter of splitting votes and things like that. However, again, that's one of those ones where now this is for me. I understand that if people don't want to get down with it, but for me, I need that to stay dim, especially because we're talking specifically about Senate seats. And when redistricting died, it was in the Senate. It was the Senate Republicans that you actually got to um, understand certain dynamics. I'm not gonna go into it yet because I'm gonna wait till we talk about it. But yeah, I think it's important that these seats are blue. It's important that they're blue.
So I guess let's go there. But before we do, real quick, I did want to talk about the congressional race there in the 7th district. Andre Carson
Mhm.
won re-election pretty handily. Yeah, but more of a challenge than he has seen in quite some time. That one got a little bit testy, kind of in
Mhm.
cases. Yeah, I had Destiny on the Sunday show at one point. She was like, when she had to leave, she's like, I gotta go. My volunteers are getting harassed at one of the polling places. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. And I think a lot of folks were upset with her for challenging Representative Carson. And I get it. This is not primarily, but a largely black district, and it's important to have black representation. But like, I don't know, like, that seat is not his birthright. I know it was his grandmother's before then, but it's called democracy. Let it happen.
Well, I'm a fan of challenges. I'm a fan of challenges across the board. And so that, I mean, it didn't bother me even as a black person in Marion County in Congressional District 7. I like the challenges. I think it lights a fire. I definitely hear and feel the concerns of wanting our congressman to be more active and engaged and involved in local politics, like using his weight inside the party to create pathways for new leaders and new leadership and challenging that status quo. And truthfully, I loved all those points. I loved those things on him. I hope that he felt some of that heat, some of that pressure, and I hope that it does switch. I however personally didn't I wasn't sold on any of the challengers because to me, especially as a black person in this state, representation is very important. And we have to we have to weigh the pros and cons of all of these things. And so for me, I didn't see enough to completely like be like, yeah, no, he has to go. So you saw me a lot. Like I talked on my podcast a lot about how personally I like Carson. He's done a lot to support me and a lot of other young Black leaders in the city. Um, but I kind of stayed out of that race for the most part though. Usually I'm a bit more vocal and more involved in those kind of races, but I kind of stayed out of it because I think the points and the criticism that were being made were fair. And I definitely certainly would like to see those things change too. So I hope that comes out of that. I don't know if it will, but I hope so.
Let me ask an ignorant white people question.
Oh.
So and listen, I guess let us maybe generalize, and we're not talking about Andre Carson specifically, or Destiny Wells or George Ornado. Kind of, maybe they are not the right person to challenge. Everybody's got their own. Everybody's messy in their own way, right? So,
Mhm.
like, just generalize. Uh, at what point, like, is there kind of like a vote black no matter who rule in races like these? We always hear vote blue no matter who, and you talk about the importance of representation. Well, like, if you get somebody who is not representing the community but they're one of ours, do you still like swallow and vote that way, or what? I don't know. Like
So
said, ignorant white
so
people
we're
question.
definitely we're not a monolith. I do not represent all Black people. I do not represent, much like I don't represent all women or anybody else, or everybody that's 5'2", right? But I do. There is. I
5'2",
mean,
you're itty bitty. You are larger than
I
life, Sam. I do not. Yeah, no.
micro mini. But I do. I there. I say this all the time. Like I'm wearing a collective pack shirt right now that says "Protect Our Power," but like I'm very much so Black first before I'm anything else. So before I'm a Democrat, before any of those things, I'm definitely Black first because we've been put in so many positions where we've had to be, that if there is not at least a little bit of protection, we lose a lot. And I think we see this on a federal level right now. We are being attacked kind of at every angle, and it's so hard. And I think, yes, having people who understand the dynamic of being Black in this country in these seats is certainly very important to me. And Andre Carson, in truth, like especially when it comes to like his voting decisions, the things that he supported and has not, the things he spoke out against, it definitely reflects our community, right? And so I so me personally am not necessarily a vote Black no matter what. Like there's definitely have lines. I definitely have lines. So like if you follow my podcast, you know that there's Nasty G that I talk about all the time. It's one of our state senators who has a lot of allegations,
Yeah.
a lot of sexual harassment allegations. So I'm definitely not a vote Black no matter what in that case, right? Um, I think when you have, but for Carson, because I have seen the work that he's done, I have seen the way he shows up for community, I have seen the way that he supports young Black leaders. I've been one of those young Black leaders that he supported. I mean, since the beginning, like before I was even really proven. And so that yeah, I think that's significant with him. So no, me personally, I'm not a vote Black no matter what. You definitely do have that sense though. And I just want to lay on the fact that because we do kind of have that internally within our community, there is this sense as well. We have like double the pressure of like you have that cultural pressure of Democrats. Oh, don't run against another Democrat. But then you have the extra layer of pressure. Oh, don't run against another Black person. So like you have this pressure being Black, being Democrat, being especially, oh my God, you throw in there you're two women too. So two Black Democrat women. It's like, oh my God. Like it is. So it's complex. It is very complex, but I think especially in the districts where we get to be picky. I think we should be picky. No matter what, whether we're the same party, the same color, the same belief system, the same whatever. It's like be picky. Where you get to be picky. And I truthfully feel like if we are picky about these leadership positions, that we actually have that flexibility to do so, that will begin to flip some of these other areas where we don't. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
that I truthfully believe that. I truthfully believe that.
Yeah, it's tricky. There's a lot, and we could. I mean, there's all sorts of angles I could dig in on. But I guess I do want to go ahead and turn the corner and talk about the state Senate here and the Republican side, what happened over there. As we talked about, there were 8 races that we were really watching that night where Trump and his allies had poured a lot of money into those races. One of them was an open seat, so sort of set that one to the side. But of those other 7, 6 incumbent state senators lost. Well, okay, hold on. 5 of them lost. The 6th is that one's going to a recount. I think I want to say he and his challenger were separated by all of 3 votes. Which, by the way, if anybody ever tells you voting doesn't matter, 3 votes, it matters.
3 votes.
But
Yeah, that's crazy.
so I don't want to go through the list and talk about all those races individually, but on the whole, the reason that Trump and his allies targeted those races was because those incumbents had the audacity to listen to their constituents and not go through with this redistricting scheme at the end of last year. And Trump and his folks wanted to redraw Indiana's congressional maps so they would favor Republicans in all 9 districts.
Mm-hmm.
They'd essentially cut out Andre Carson's district, cut out Frank
Mm-hmm.
Mervan's district. And it's not just that they were going to do some gerrymandering. It was like precision surgical. They were going to pinwheel Marion County and divide it
They have to.
starting right through the middle of the Black community was where they were going to divide up the state, right down 38th Street. It was obvious. And now, in the wake of this recent Supreme Court ruling, which all but neutered the Voting Rights Act of 1965, gee, thanks, John Roberts, 40 years of work, play the long game, did the thing. That was his life's work. But I guess, 2 things. Number one, come next year when if Republicans maintain control in the state Senate with that far right MAGA cohort, they're going to try again. And then number 2, I guess, tie that into what's going on in the South right now, where they're doing the same thing in Louisiana, in South Carolina, in Alabama, and in Tennessee. Just happened last week.
That's so one, and I made this case before they made the decision with redistricting. I made this case, I doubled down on it after. Redistricting our state, splitting up Marion County, because you have to have, so for those of you who don't know, you have to have a certain amount of people per district. Okay. So because of that, they have to redraw very creatively. Now, this is the problem. When you get into Marion County, and I think it would only take us, a cycle or two up even in a Lake County, we could flip another district. That's really why they didn't redistrict. It had nothing to do with them listening to their constituents. Nothing. It really had to do, they were going to take us from 7-2 to 6-3, and they know it. And so what I hope is that we keep enough intelligent people in the Senate that can see that. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of okay either way. I would love to get an extra district, but I definitely feel the weight of possibly losing one, but I don't think that's the case. I do not think there's a way that you can split Marion County, even with all of that creative drawing that they did. that we only end up with one district down here. I just don't see it. I think that I can't remember the map now because now it's been a year ago that we were having these discussions, but or almost, but um there was a district, a northern district, where they take like part of the east side of Marion County up north and wrap it down. I think that goes blue, and I think there was another one that was definitely going to stay blue, and yeah, and I think a cycle or two down the road there were a couple up in Lake County that we could also flip. So they would be opening a can of worms if they did this. So I'm not giving them any credit like, oh, they did not. They don't I don't think they care about us like that, truthfully. I think what it actually was is they know numbers like the rest of us do, and that these districts, it's so hard to creatively redraw Marion County where you don't give us a chance to get another district. You're going to try to mark out one, and we're going to get two instead. And I think that's the truth of it. Now, what's challenging is that we know these MAGA candidates, they don't care. They don't care about that stuff. They just want their way. So it's like they could come in, redistrict, and put us to the test. And then honestly, as Democrats, as a party, as organizers, then we're up to bat, right? We got to win that extra district. We got to make them pay for that redistricting. But there was a small part of me that was like, let's see what happens. Like I'm interested in trying to win an extra district.
Yeah, I've heard this phenomenon referred to as a dummy mander.
Yeah.
Like the Republicans kind of they number one assume that folks will vote the same way they did last time,
Yes.
and also that people don't move around, and so you the way this works is okay. Right now we've got they sort of concede the 7th district. We're going to pack all the Democrats we can in there, and then these other districts we're running about 15, 22 points ahead all the time. Well, in order to do this redistricting and cut it up the way they would, well, now we're looking at 9 districts that are maybe 10 points Republican. They take all those black folks and Latino folks in Marion County, and they divide them into these other districts. And if we get our stuff together and turn out in those areas, you could wind up flipping more seats than you think. I mean, look, we've seen all these special elections. We saw the congressional or the state house races in New Jersey and Virginia last year, where Democrats ran well ahead. We're seeing, I think, Democrats running like 13 points ahead of 2024 on a generic ballot right now, and in some of these individual races they're flipping seats that were 20-25% Republican seats previously.
Yes.
So listen, gas stays $5-6 a gallon, you're gonna upset people that maybe have voted Republican before. Maybe they don't vote Democrat, maybe they just don't vote.
Right. And I mean, truthfully, that's what Republicans have been banking on here and even around here, is Democrats not showing up, right? They've been able to bank on that. And that certainly could happen with some of these districts. I think that's truthfully what ultimately ended up being like the point that made redistricting not go through. I think the House will just do whatever. I mean, our state house, I mean, the House in the state house they'll do whatever. But the senators, I think they're typically a little more they hear logic a little more. I want to say a mean word.
Moderate would be doing a lot of work there.
They're definitely not moderate. But I think they would hear and entertain a good argument. And I think there's enough of them that were smart enough to know that, hey, if we do this, there's a very real chance that we could be creating another Democrat district, not getting rid of one. And I think they're smart to think that. But as an organizer, man, I mean, we have a lot of momentum going right now, especially in Marion County. And there's a small part of me that almost wants to see, what does it look like for us to get the chance to flip another district? So I don't know, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but that's where I'm kind of at with it. I think for to the point about them splitting Black communities. Like I remember early in organizing, I learned about Lee Atwater, who was a Republican strategist like a long time ago, and I remember him talking about how, basically the system had worked so well. Black people had been oppressed so well that they were now like lower class, right? So he was like, so we don't have to say the N word. We don't have to, approach it like this. If we oppress this class of people, we are oppressing Black people. If we push these different kind of, financial focused, policy and things like that, we are oppressing Black people. And I think it's a similar kind of thing as they oppress Democrats now, because that's what was significant to me in this Supreme Court decision is they were saying, oh, no, you can't do it based on race, but if you do it based on party, that's okay, right? And it's like, okay, but when 80+% Black people are Democrats, it's like, yeah, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, Lee Atwater. I cannot repeat the phrase that he used, but he said something to the effect of, "Well, you used to be able to run a political race and say N word, N word, N word. Well, now, that's become distasteful. So we have to talk about things like states' rights or lower tax brackets or the out of control debt, and they really all have the same effect in the long run."
Yes.
So,
yes, and that's exactly what they're doing right now. The system has worked. The system of oppression and racism has worked so well that it has boxed Black folks into certain neighborhoods, certain political parties, certain classes, and because of that, they can oppress those groups, and they are still, they're getting the same job done, and that's how I see that kind of stuff. And I think this is what I'll say about Black folks, though, is we are such a resilient people that through all of these kind of things, we have found a way to make things happen and make things work. And no, it's not right. And no is but life is often not fair. You know what I mean? It's all we often have to fight. I tell people all the time, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you fight for. And I think when it comes to redistricting, especially here, I think that's a dangerous game for Republicans. And I'm almost like, I'll do it then. Like I'm telling you, I'm close just because I think it will backfire. I think it'll backfire. And now they have MAGA, or they may have MAGA senators that would carry that cross. Because that was the other question is who's gonna take the blame when this backfires? Who's gonna take the blame for it backfiring, right? Because definitely Bray doesn't want to. So it's like, who's going to take that blame? And now that you have several MAGA state senators that have gotten through, there may be some that are like, I'll take the weight of it. I don't know. We'll see.
Speaking of getting blamed for bad results there, Sam, I guess I wanted to take the last couple minutes to talk about something. Now, as a progressive, and I'm not speaking for myself, I personally still went out and voted for Kamala Harris in 2024, but a lot of folks did not. Because she was sort of complicit in her boss, President Biden's funding and backing of Israel's genocide in Gaza. And that continues, by the way, apace to this day. And I think a lot of, not a lot, but there are certain folks in the Democratic community that sort of blame the progressive left for Kamala's loss, that we gave the world a second Trump term, that we gave the world this VRA result for not voting for Hillary in 2016. Again, I swallowed. I did.
I did too.
I think most of us did.
We were like, ugh.
And I think that's maybe what I want to get at is like, it's not us engaged progressive Democrats that you have to worry about. Like, I think for most of us, and again, not all of us, some of us will not go out there and pull that lever for somebody who cannot clear the lowest bar and say, hey, man, maybe we shouldn't kill all those kids. I wouldn't blame them for not doing so. But I think for the most part, we're saying this is a warning. If you do not get your stuff together and condemn these horrific actions, there are a lot of folks who will not vote for you. I don't know, Sam. Are the progressive left racist for delivering policies, delivering a Trump that has, in fact, yes, been harmful to the black community?
No, I because at what point, at what but to me it feels like when your spouse cheats on you and you go beat up the other girl or guy, and but your spouse is the one that made the commitment to you. It feels like that to me when they blame the progressive left. It's like, listen, I understand you being angry, but it's going to the wrong direction, sweetheart. Like, what we needed to do is to figure out, why could we not, we had all of these years to prepare Kamala Harris for this seat, for this race, for the time that we're in. Why were you all so blind that you could not have prepped her? Because let's be real, when we're talking about at a presidential level, the level of preparedness is just, it's absurd. And then also the level of like, you are creating this candidate that people can believe in, that'll drive them to vote for them. Like, you are 100% meeting somebody's representative. I never think, as somebody at that level of politics, that you just know this person. You're right, because I don't even think that's how power at that level works. But that's where um I blame the party. I blame her campaign. I blame, because they knew that they were going to run her. Like, you cannot convince me that running her last minute like that wasn't a strategy. I think it was. I think they knew they had issues with connection. I think they knew that she was going to have issues with especially some of our progressive voters. I think they knew all of that, and I think they tried to pull a fast one. Listen, a quick punch in the mouth. Let's get her through. And I think they thought, hey, we'll ride that momentum, history momentums, first black woman, first South Asian woman, first, all of these things, all these first. They're like, oh, we're going to ride this momentum into victory, right? I think that's what they really thought. And that is such a lazy way of approaching this. You should have made sure that she was a great candidate that people could believe in, that would have galvanized our party, all these different sects, to vote for. And ultimately, that was their failure, not ours, not progressive Democrats. It was not our failure. That was yours to hold. And I don't think, no, it's not racist at all, because she wasn't not voted for because she was black. Now, some people, yes, right? Now, and I'm not going to speak for all progressive Democrats. I would venture to say that a lot of them aren't racist, but who knows? I've seen a lot in this Democrat Party. But I will say that I think it was a poorly prepared candidate. I think, when they saw warning signs, they just, full steam ahead when they should have corrected those things. For me, she had there was a there was an authenticity piece that was missing. Like, I think a lot of times, I think about the quote when they asked her a question, and she was like, well, if you break into my house, you will be shot. And she's like laughing. And it was just like, it felt so strange. Like, who are you? Like, who? You know what I mean? It was like, it was just so odd. It was not genuine at all. It was not authentic. I struggle with things that I could grab onto. Now, again, I voted for her. I was going to vote for her. Period. Point blank. I was going to vote for her. But at the same time, yeah, we have got to, there's a art to, like, campaigning and running the right kind of candidates that actually can connect and excite people, that we've been missing for a long time. I think we have thought that, like, there's one group of people, is like, oh, we need somebody who can do a good job. It's like, oh, we need somebody who will, work our interests. But we miss the fact of, no, you need somebody, one, that can win, fool. Because if they can't win, there is no job to be done. Like, you need somebody that can win and that can represent and do the job well. And when we're not inspired by these candidates, you just don't see it. Again, on the flip side, we see, like, a Mom Donnie, who is incredibly genuine, easy to connect with. He's great. He's a great candidate. He's a great candidate because he can win the race and he can also do the job well, right? It's like that's the combination. Like that's the secret sauce. Can they win? Can they win the campaign? And they win the election? Can they do the job well? And we have not done enough of matching those up. We get one or the other, and it's time that we get both.
And Democrats have been guilty of this, I think, at least since the Clinton administration, or since Clinton did this. And people forget that in '92 he sort of backed into that win. Like, that was a three-way race. It was weird. Ross Perot was there, and you know, the Bush had a little recession just right going into that race, and so it's like we've spent the last 30 plus years now at this point thinking, well, that's the way Democrats can win because Bill Clinton won that way in 1992. And in this state especially, I think we're still stuck like in the Clinton era, and we've triangulated ourselves into fascism by not standing for anything other than, well, those guys are bad. I'm not going to say anything too controversial. I'm not going to be myself. I'm just going to shush and do what the donors want me to do, and, you know, not stand for anything. Liz Cheney, would you like to join me on stage?
Yeah, and that's yes. I mean, and that's where we need to be uncompromising, is internally. We need to be uncompromising internally so that we produce better candidates. Like, our problem is we're in these conundrums at the ballot box, but that shouldn't be where the conundrum is. It should be happening much earlier, right? Like, so even with a, you know, like what I was talking about before about this difficult decision we're going to have to make with Forrestal, right? Truthfully, we should not be in that position. We shouldn't be in that position because the standards that we set internally for our party should be at a place where we are producing better candidates so that whoever gets through, we wouldn't be angry about being able to vote for them. But because things are so broken at a foundational level, we are producing terrible candidates that we're hoping don't get through, and then they do get through, and then we're in this conundrum of, do we vote for them? Do we make a statement and not? Are they still going to get through if we don't? Like, what do we have to look? Now we're playing the pros and cons game of, is it worth us getting a win in the state house, in the state senate, right? To, you know, not be the person, like, this isn't my favorite person. This isn't a person I like. This isn't a person I want to vote for. Is it worth that? And that, truthfully, I've been having this same conversation with myself with Bo Bai and Black Potter. Is it worth it to give establishment Democrats the win for us to have a statewide representation? It is a sucky position that we are in, but I do think it's worth us having that conversation. I heard some of your points about this, which I love and appreciate. But I think still it's a conversation worth having, because is it, when we're in a place where we need to desperately protect elections, is it more important that that um like, what's more important, I guess? Like, what is that win or that loss worth? And that's what I'm asking myself, because I'm still undecided on that, by the way. But that's what I'm asking myself every day, is like, what is it worth? And trying to weigh it out, and equally mad that we haven't done a better job at organizing and preparing so that people aren't in this position to begin with.
A lot of times, I think we as Democrats sort of psych ourselves out. We don't actually vote for who we want to win. We vote for who we think might be able to win, who might be able to attract some moderate country club Republican in Hamilton County.
Yep.
Turns out they don't. Like, we've been, I feel like, doing this very strategy for 30 years now. We're like, oh, no, don't pick the person. Don't pick the unapologetic liberal. Don't pick the person we want. Pick the person who might be able to peel off a few Republicans. Well, they haven't peeled off any Republicans yet, and we're sort of still there. And then you run into the problem where, well, like, this person is maybe funded by questionable donors. Well, if they do win, well, then who do they actually work for? And that's back to, if
Hmm.
you want to go all the way back to the beginning of the show and tie a big bow on this thing, Sam, that's the Joe Hogsett of it all, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Yes. Yes. And and what I'm saying is, and I can take it back to where we started with this question. I don't think we're to blame. The voters that are going to the ballot box on election day, that is not where the problem is. The problem is with our foundation and our culture within our party that is producing terrible candidates. That is our problem. That is our problem right there. We should have candidates that we're excited about, because if I'm going to be honest, I'm not excited about either one of them, if I'm being totally honest. Neither one of them like excite me. Neither one of them like, we should not be in this position to begin with. That's the problem. Is we should be turning out better candidates, but to do that, we need better party leadership, we need better accountability, we need better standards, we need and we need to organize. I think what's funny is that you pointed to people looking at Clinton's race as like, oh, that's how we win. But it's like, you don't look at Obama's race, the incredible grassroots organizing that was going on, and think, oh, that's how we win. That turned Indiana blue. That is how we win. Grassroots organizing. We start at a foundational level and build. That's how we do that.
and Obama ran unapologetically as a progressive. Oh man, that race was nasty too. The Clintons were mean to him. They went was racially tinged, let's call it that, in that race. And I take his word for it that he's not a Muslim. Like that. Hillary Clinton said that, and
Yeah.
I think the failure was that Obama ran as a progressive and talked about hope and change, and then didn't govern that way. And we very much were afraid to go big, and
Yeah.
we let the parliamentarian get in our way. We let the
Yeah.
but get in our way.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. I mean, no argument. No argument there. I think, yeah. Yes. we did. We did. I think, but at any rate, the approach, the strategy is good. And we should have stuck with that. And right now, if we had stuck with that strategy, think about that. That was 2008. If we had stuck with that strategy, the place that we would be in now, my God, if we were grassroots organizing across this state at that level, we would be in an incredible position. And I think one of the things that I challenge myself with is, but if we never start, like, we never start. And so, like, this is why we started with Marion County last year and getting people to run for PC. So we increased our PC candidates 64%. We had like 260 some PCs run in 2022. We had 440 run this year for
Wow.
PC. And so, and that's what they talked about, turnout increasing here. But that's where that starts. I use this example all the time, but when I ran for PC for the first time in 2022, my dad voted for the first time in like 40 years. Okay.
Wow.
Nobody was going to turn my dad out but me. Nobody. And that's why challenges are important. That's why starting at this foundational level of PCs is important, because at that level, there are people that you can turn out in your neighborhood that nobody else can. And there are people that other candidates can turn out that you never could. And that's why it's important that as many of us that can jump into these races, work really hard to campaign, because that's how we increase turnout. Because if you do that now over 600 and some precincts across Marion County, turnout goes up. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, we know. It's the challenge. It's the getting people to turn out. But at the most basic level, it is starting at a foundational level and building from there. We have to grassroots organize.
We need a whole generation of Samantha Douglases out there, like doing the thing. Can we clone you? We need a lot of you out there.
I think we need a lot of all of us. It's because it takes all of us. I think we need a lot of all of us. I definitely say I want to clone our progressives, our progressive movements, and all of our organizers who are just doing really, really great work. That is who I would love to clone. I don't think it's just me, because I'm sure even in this conversation I've made some progressives mad, and I'm sorry, but we each are playing our role, and I think there's value in the diversity. I think there's value in the difference of approach as well, and I think we get somewhere better when we're vocal, and we show up, and again we organize. We think about who we're bringing with us.
Absolutely, 100%. We gotta do the thing, and I know it can very much feel like a Sisyphean task very often. But what else? What else are we gonna do? I'm not entirely sure. So we can organize, or we can give up. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. You pointed this out. We have a very, very important mayoral race next year. And how painful would it be to lose that chance? Because it feels like, if you're in Marion County, you know how exhausting all of these things have been. And I've been telling folks, it feels like we've been like chafed. Like it's just raw here. Like we just feel so raw. And Andrea Hunley's campaign, it feels like a balm, like a soothing to that rawness. It feels like a light at the end of the tunnel. And imagine we get there and we just can't get her across the line because something as stupid as turnout. And it's just like, we cannot. If each one of us is just doing a little part at building right now, we can actually create real change next year. And that change, by the way, getting Hogstead out of office, out of that seat, is so critically important, because that also takes a major piece out of that establishment Democrat leadership that is super problematic within our party.
Right, and yeah, like it's not just Hawkset, right? It's his allies, and it's important
Hmm.
to sort of uproot that entire
Yep.
tree, not just the one guy on it. So,
Yep.
Sam, just a couple minutes left. I guess I wanted to take this time to allow you to tell the folks where they can find you, where they can get in touch, how can they follow you on social media, where can they listen to the Black Briefing.
So you can listen to the Black Briefing on YouTube. You can actually watch us. If you go to at the Black Briefing on YouTube, you can find us. It's me and my co-host Wild Style Pichelle, who is phenomenal. I hope you have him on the podcast. I couldn't say enough good things about Wild Style. He's a great human. He's so smart. He knows so much. I feel like every time I talk to him, I learn something else. It's incredible. So that's what makes the podcast great, is like I come in with the talking points, but he really comes in with this super depth of knowledge that's incredible. So can't again, like I said, I can't say enough good things about him. And my husband makes it possible too, Jared Douglas. He is behind the camera, often giving us all the laughs and little side comments, but also doing our audio and everything. But yeah, ultimately it just creates a beautiful product, and think we can be found on YouTube and most other podcast platforms. I will have to admit though, I'm much slower on the audio, getting the audio up, than I am on the video on YouTube. But some of our most recent interviews are some of my favorites. We had Andrea Hunley on there recently. We had Tamara Winfrey Harris, who leads the Women's Foundation of Indiana now, on there. So it's a great resource.
It really is. How about on social media? Can folks follow you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Facebook, I'm Samantha Douglas. We also have a Facebook page for the podcast, which is again at the Black Briefing. And then on Instagram, I'm pretty sure I'm at LHL Sam. I haven't had somebody ask me that in a long time, but it's at
I think so. Yeah.
LHL Sam. Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, Samantha Douglas, thank you so much for joining me here on the Who's Left podcast tonight. I'm going to go ahead and send you backstage and say goodbye to the folks. Stick around for the end credits so I can say goodbye to you and thank
Okay.
you personally
Yeah.
before we sign off for the night. Once again, folks, Samantha Douglas,
Thank
follow
you so
her
much.
wherever and listen to the Black Briefing podcast. Thank you so much, Sam. All right.
Thank you.
So that was the incredible Samantha Douglas joining us this evening here on the Who's Left podcast. And I will take this time to, remind you to tune in this coming Sunday for Who's Left This Week, Indiana's only apologetically progressive Sunday morning politics show. We will talk about the week's top stories from U.S. and international news to what's going on right here in Indiana and how it is all interconnected. Tune in on YouTube, Facebook Live, and of course at progressiveindiana.net. My guests this Sunday are House District 53 candidate Reese Axel Adams and the aforementioned Carla Lopez Owens will be joining us this week. We cannot deliver all of this vital content without your support, so please consider contributing to Who's Left and the wider Progressive Indiana Network with a paid subscription if you're able. This independent media project relies solely on the generosity of kind patrons like you to make this information available for free to everybody. Again, that's at progressiveindiana.net. We could also really use a follow on social media at Progressive Indiana Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the same handle, and over on Blue Sky and TikTok, we are at PIN Indiana. You can find me on most social media sites at Who's Left. That's HOOS Left. Direct message me with feedback, tips, ideas, and concerns, or email me at scott@whosleft.us. Finally, please forward the show to a friend and have them pass it on to Let's Keep Building This Project and a truly democratic state, one conversation at a time. Until the next one, this has been the Who's Left Podcast. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.